Before becoming a doctor, every medical student must choose a medical specialty that they will practice for, in most cases, multiple decades. In this video, I'm going to talk about the process of choosing a specialty and how I chose mine. Stick around to find out more. How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to AV Med. My name's Adrian and I'm now a fourth year medical student. I know it's been a little bit since I made a video, but I really wanted to update you guys, and I always get a lot of comments now asking what specialty I'm going into. I actually just applied to residency, so I thought this would be a good time to talk about it. Like I said in the intro, every medical student has to choose a specialty, and it's a really big decision. I've been weighing what specialty I should go into for multiple years now and trying to really research and figure out in what specialty I'm going to be the most happy, the most successful, and now I've made that decision. A lot of people ask, can you change specialties? Well, you can, but it's more of a rare thing to do so, and it's pretty difficult. If you've already finished residency, then to change your field, you actually have to, in most cases, start over and do another residency. So you're doing several more years of grueling work in another field. So it's very unpopular to do that. And if you're already a resident, then you can also switch fields. I've heard of people doing this, but it relies on the field that you're switching into having an open spot, and it can also mean adding on years to your training too. For those reasons, it's pretty uncommon, and most people really try to choose the right field for them the first time, and that's what I try to do. So when I started medical school, I had a really open mind. I definitely wasn't someone who was super set on one specialty. I was kind of interested in emergency medicine, or maybe trauma surgery. I really liked the idea of doing some sort of critical care. I like the idea of working with my hands. But at the start of medical school, you don't really know what each specialty is fully. Maybe you've seen it on TV, or in some cases, maybe you've already done some shadowing before medical school, but I think it's hard to really know what you want to go into right at the start, and that's okay. So let's talk about what changed. So I'm going to talk about the third year of medical school. This is what I have kind of showed on my channel. I did videos doing a day in the life of a lot of the core specialties, but I think that the third year of medical school is really when most students decide what they want to do. Even if they already had something in mind, this is when most people confirm it, and you really get a great view of all different types of doctors, and you can kind of figure out what you want to do. I think what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about every field that I rotated on, and I'm going to go in order of the fields that I felt I was least likely to go into what I ended up choosing in order. I'll just give a disclaimer too, I'm not trying to talk poorly about any specialty or anyone who is, passionate about these specialties. These are just my personal preferences. All these fields are important, but this is just my perspective. So let's talk about the field that I was probably the least likely to go into, and this is psychiatry. I'm going to start with the pros of this specialty. I think the biggest pro is definitely the hours. You can see in that video, I get out at about 3 p.m. most days, which is really nice. I got a lot of free time on that rotation, and overall the hours are really relaxed. I also did think that a lot of the pathologies or the diseases that I saw were really interesting, and I hadn't ever seen kind of mental illness from a clinical standpoint. So it was definitely an interesting rotation, and I wouldn't say I had a bad time at all. I think the biggest con of this field for me was I really missed thinking about physiology and all of the organs and treating problems going on inside someone's body. I think psychiatry is more focused on the mind and mental health, and they do think about the body a little bit, but I really miss thinking about the organs and found myself really missing that. Another con for me of this field, I feel like a lot of the diagnoses are a little bit ambiguous. I like when there's a very specific thing going on that you can treat, and sometimes there's diagnoses in psychiatry that overlap, like bipolar with depressive symptoms, or schizophrenia and depression. They can all overlap and become ambiguous. All right, the next field I'll talk about is family medicine. So for those of you who don't know, family medicine is basically like a primary care doctor, and they can take care of patients that are babies all the way to when they're elderly, and also pregnant patients. So they have a really wide scope. What I liked about this rotation a lot, I felt like family medicine doctors had some of the best relationships with their patients. They were really close with them. They often took care of even the whole family sometimes, and I thought that was really cool. They also had a great schedule. They often just worked 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. So a lot of them seemed pretty balanced. And I just like that in general, they had a lot of ownership over their patients. And what I mean by that is just they took a lot of responsibility for their patients' health, and could really advocate for their patients. So I thought that this was really cool. So the cons of family medicine for me and why this is pretty far down my list, I would say one of the biggest things is that family medicine is mostly outpatient, and so you're taking care of patients in a clinic, and I found that I really miss the hospital. I like taking care of patients in the hospital, and I like taking care of patients that are more sick. Not that I want anyone to be sick, obviously, but I like being a type of doctor who can take care of someone when they're really sick, and family medicine isn't really the best field for that. I also really like using my hands, and there were very few procedures in general. I know some do more than others, but procedures are not a big part of family medicine. I also feel like there's a lot of delayed gratification because it's a lot of preventive care, and this is so important, but it just isn't that gratifying for me to do something that is going to take years and years to take effect compared to doctors who can do something that's more immediate. All right, next for me is pediatrics, and most of you know what a pediatrician does. They take care of babies all the way from the time they're born until they're 18 years old, and I actually loved seeing babies on my rotation. They're super cute. Even working with kids was really fun. I think my favorite was working with kids who were on the newborn unit. I loved doing the newborn exam, learning how to swaddle babies. It was probably one of the highlights of the year for me. I also like that pediatricians have to think about the whole body. They're thinking about all the organs with their treatments. Kids are also really resilient, and they tend to have really good outcomes. So these are all really cool things about the field. So the cons of this field for me, I think the biggest thing is that I just don't really like seeing sick kids. It makes me very sad. I don't think I could do that day after day. And also, pediatricians do a lot of primary care, which for the same reasons as family medicine isn't really my favorite, because there's not a lot of procedures and a lot of preventive care takes a long time to take effect, so it just wasn't my jam. Okay, next for me is internal medicine. These are doctors who are the adult doctors, often in the hospital. I know they can also do primary care, and there's a lot of fellowships. You can become a cardiologist, a nephrologist, a pulmonologist, all these different types of doctors through internal medicine, and a lot of people think about it as the default field. I like the fact that there are all these interesting fellowships, and I also like that they're always thinking about the whole body, and they really spend a lot of time thinking, and it was really interesting to think about all the interesting cases that you see on internal medicine. However, for me, I think the biggest con of this field was how much rounding there is. Rounding is when you go around and stand outside your patient's room often and talk about every single detail of the patient's care, and in internal medicine, there's a lot of rounding. Often, sometimes 4 to 6 hours of walking around and talking, and it was just too much talking for me. I don't think I could do it. I would also say internal medicine doctors do very little procedures. They don't do a lot with their hands, so for me, that was a deal breaker. So next for me is neurology. This is pretty similar to internal medicine, but these doctors really just focus on problems of the nervous system. And I really liked neurology, actually. My favorite thing was the physical exam that they do is super detailed, and they can actually, for example, if someone has a stroke, often pinpoint exactly where the stroke occurred just based on their physical exam without even needing imaging like a CT scan. So I thought that this was really cool that they could pinpoint the problem, and I just think in general, the nervous system is really interesting. For me, the cons are pretty similar to internal medicine. There was a lot of rounding. The outcomes are not super great after stroke always, and there's very few actually procedures that you do. Okay, next is OBGYN. I actually took a quiz at the beginning of medical school, and it said I should be an OBGYN, so I thought that was kind of funny because it was never super high on my list, but I actually really enjoyed my rotation. I think you get to see, the miracle of life often, and see babies be born and do C-sections, which is one of the most life-saving procedures in medicine. So I really liked that. There was a lot of surgery, a lot of doing stuff with your hands. So for me, I really liked that. And you also do a little bit of primary care. If you're really passionate about women's health, this can be a really great field for you. I think for me, the biggest con is just that these procedures were limited to the female reproductive system, and they do a lot of cool surgeries, but I wanted to be able to do more things on other parts of the body. So maybe you can start to think about what I ended up going into. Okay, these are the top 3 specialties that I considered. I really went back and forth between some of these, at least until I was able to rotate on them. So let's get into it. Okay, number 3 for me is anesthesiology. I really liked this field theoretically. I think it was very interesting to me to think about the physiology. They have a lot of procedures that they do, and I also found that I did like being in the operating room. So, a lot of people talk about how great this field is, and I think it is a great field. And I think that I really liked the idea of it, but then when I actually did my highly anticipated anesthesiology rotation, I just didn't see myself doing it. I think the cons for me is in the operating room, I didn't really like sitting behind the drape once the operation was going on. I was really interested in what was going on the other side of the drape. And I also didn't like the idea of kind of just caring for the patient in the operating room and not seeing kind of what happens to them or seeing what happened before they got to the operating room. So I wanted to take care of the patient in more settings. So although I was really interested in anesthesiology, I think that once I actually did it, there's kind of just a vibe check or a gut feeling, and it just wasn't it for me. Number 2 for me is emergency medicine. This is something I was interested in from the beginning of medical school, just because I always liked the idea of taking care of trauma patients. I liked that they did a lot of procedures, they made a lot of interesting diagnoses, and overall it was kind of a fast-paced specialty, and that was appealing to me. Another pro of emergency medicine that I think a lot of people who go into it like is it's shift work. So a lot of times you're only at the hospital for 8 to 12 hours and then you get to go home and you're not responsible anymore. And in general, EM doctors work a lot less hours than other doctors. But getting into the cons for me, I just think I found I actually really liked following the same patients in the hospital. And I also noticed that even though it's shift work, there are a lot of nights that you have to do, even as an attending doctor. And there's also a lot of flip-flopping where you do nights a couple days and then days. And I just didn't want to commit to that circadian rhythm disruption forever. So I did like emergency medicine a lot, but I think when I really thought about it and did some soul searching, it was not the right field for me. All right, so the field that I ended up going into is general surgery. I just submitted my applications into general surgery, and I'll tell you why. I think that I loved my general surgery rotation. It was actually general surgery and trauma surgery, and I would have 24-hour shifts that I would just really look forward to, even though they were 24 hours. I just feel like I loved going in. I was pretty excited to go in every day. I feel like it was the field where I would come home and talk about it and talk and talk. Obviously, surgery has a lot of procedures, and I loved working with my hands. Even just getting to help close at the end of a case, that just means close the skin after surgery. Even that for me was super exciting, and I found myself really just thinking about it every day. And I definitely think my personality fit in best. I liked the general surgeons. I feel like I got along really well with the residents, and it was kind of the only field where I really found myself looking up to the residents and wanting to be like them. I think for me, also just definitely the gut feeling or the vibes, as I called it earlier, was really good in general surgery. I think you have to feel like a calling, and a lot of times I think people have a click moment or a light bulb moment, they call it, where they find the field that they say, yes, this is for me. And for me, my general surgery rotation, I definitely had that. Just to be consistent, I can also talk about some of the cons of general surgery. I think for me, probably one of the most difficult things will be the long hours. General surgery residents tend to work about 80 hours a week on average, which is a lot. And the training is also very long. The minimum amount of training for general surgery is 5 years, but a lot of more academic programs have 2 years for research, so it can be as long as 7 years just for the basic residency without any fellowships. I think for me though, those cons are really worth it just because I feel like I love the field so much. And I also went straight through to medical school, so I don't mind taking a little bit longer to train. I spent a long time thinking about this decision. I spent a lot of time just thinking about the pros and the cons of each field for multiple years. So hopefully this gave you all some insight into what it's like to make this stressful decision. Someone told me once that choosing your specialty is like a marriage because you're really with that field for decades and decades and most of your life. So I've made my decision. Let me know what medical field you're interested in if you're going into medicine, and I'm happy to answer any more questions about this too. Leave a comment down below if you want to know more about what it's like to apply to residency. I just did it, hoping to make some more videos for all of you. I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you in the next video.